Shamanettes, and welcome to the Beauty Shaman. So today we are having one of my all-time favorite guests, ANDREA PFLAUMER, who is author of the book Shopping for the Real You. And we do interviews every season or maybe more because I just love talking to her about style and fashion and then making it applicable for all of you, for our age range. Because you can dress fabulously, you can look fabulously. It's just getting the know-how and also understanding what's going on in fashion. And that's what we are here to talk about today. So thank you so much for joining me, ANDREA.
It's always fun and a pleasure. Thank you, Suzanne.
Yes. So we get along so well. I think you and I could just like chat all day long, right? We're that coffee talk ladies. We could just sit and like,
Yeah,
it's wonderful. All right. So what's going on in fashion in the fall? What's happening?
well, I think with the recession, and we have to accept that this is what's going on.
Right.
People aren't shopping as much.
Right.
And the retailers know this.
Yeah.
And so they're not being terribly experimental this year. They're not veering too far from what they did last fall and winter. And I think it's like daily, I get emails from retailers offering 20% off, 40% off on current fashions. Wow. Even high-end shoe manufacturers like Stuart Weitzman, and they're offering on brand new styles 40% off.
Wow.
So if you have any disposable income, this is a great time to shop for winter things. Usually I encourage people to shop at the end of the season, but I think they're not actually keeping as much inventory now because they know people aren't shopping as much. So I think, so that's what's happening. We're not seeing great differences from last year, but there are some significant ones. So we'll talk a little bit about that. What we're seeing is an extreme dichotomy.
Yes.
Just like, fashion is a reflection of what goes on geopolitically and sociologically. So there's like huge divides all over the world between people who feel one way and people who feel the other way. And so what we're seeing in fashion is extremely masculine or extremely feminine. And there's almost nothing in between.
Wow.
So you got to be creative. You got to figure out what works for you. We're seeing a lot of menswear ideas, even three-piece suits or menswear vests on their own, worn with sort of suit. Well, it's those baggy, not baggy, but pleated and relaxed suit pants, which are pretty flexible for a lot of people because they hide your big hips. They sort of flare out a little bit. They're not the skinny, straight jeans that we've been dealing with or pants that we see usually in suits. The blazers that men's wear. I mean, I think I mentioned this to you. Some of them, if you remember David Byrne's Stop Making Sense.
Yes.
That oversized
big
blazer.
Boxy. We're actually, yeah.
We're seeing some from the runways like this, but I know you as a former model realize that what you see on the runways gets translated down for the shoppers. Right. So, not a lot of people, especially older women, are not going to be wearing these gigantic, big shoulder, big size blazers.
We hope not. We hope not. But there's a few amongst us who will be like, no, I'm totally wearing that.
And so pants and jeans are a little bit looser, lots of jeans, lots of pants. We're seeing leather everything. And we're seeing it in long coats, in blazers, but not really oversized blazers, thank God, because that it gives them more longevity. We're seeing a lot of skirts, like midi skirts and midi skirts in leather.
Wow.
And
cool.
The shoes, we'll talk about shoes.
Yeah, we got to get to shoes. I just want to say the audience has got to stay until we talk about shoes, because the shoes I was looking at some shoes like, wow, I've got some questions for you around shoes, because I think it's hard for older women to pull off some of this because it's very imbalanced, right? Like you become very imbalanced looking. So let's not give away too much. Let's start with the first thing, which is the oversized blazer, which you've kind of touched on, but let's get into that a little bit more. The David Byrne iconic jacket, from I Stop Making Sense, like that's not just in menswear, that's in women's wear as well, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I say menswear, I mean It's women's style a la menswear.
Menswear, yeah.
So it's a tailored style, but it's not tailored. It's boxy in shape, and it's a little bit oversized. So you can go a little oversized, especially if you're carrying a little bit of weight and you're busty. If you have a little bit oversized blazer jacket, that could be a nice little piece to wear with your jeans.
Right.
And
you say if you're busty, it's a good thing to wear. It doesn't make them
because
look
it's
more
a little
busty.
Bigger.
Okay,
because
but
it's a little bigger.
Okay, it won't make you look more busty though, right?
If you're wearing a very tailored jacket, and it has darts and seams, and you have a large bust, I think women all know this. It's hard to get it fitted right.
Yes, yes.
So the fact that it's a little, well, instead of saying oversized, let's say relaxed. I like that word relaxed better. Yeah. Okay. So it could be, you could have, instead of big lapels, because that will make a bust look bigger, keep the lapels smaller, or keep them, just sort of straight up and down instead of fitted.
Right.
And then you can wear something nice underneath. We'll talk about tops a little bit, but yeah, you can do that. Think in terms of relaxed rather than oversized.
Right.
The textiles, though, for these, you're going to see a lot of small checks, and sort of houndstooth is very popular.
Oh wow, that's cool. So houndstooth in the jacket you're talking about,
in the jackets, right? Yeah, and suits, and whole suits,
and houndstooth. That would be beautiful. So I want to touch on. I love the idea that clothes are a reflection of geopolitical situations, and I think that's absolutely the case. And the whole overly masculine, like what we're discussing, is a very, very masculine look. And I think a lot of women, it's very difficult. Like maybe I like very straight lines. I tend to really gravitate towards that sort of thing. But something that's that masculine is a little bit challenging. So what are ways that women can maybe wear it, but soften it up a little bit? I know you want to talk about tops later, but yeah, how could we do that? How could we pull it off?
This is a very important point that you bring up, because I think for a lot of women, as we get older, we start to feel less feminine.
Yes.
And yes, that doesn't have to be the case. It really depends on your style, your personal style. But so this is about the geopolitical divide.
Right.
So on the other end of the extreme are the textiles. The textiles are extremely feminine, other than the menswear. Another thing we're seeing, I'll talk about textiles in detail, but we're seeing super, super short mini skirts. Like I've never seen mini skirts that short before. Like you don't dare sit down. You can barely walk. And I saw a girl wearing this at the airport the other day, and I thought, how did she sit? But we're probably not going to do that. But the textiles, what we're going to be seeing is a lot of cashmere, a lot of really soft luxe alpaca, a lot of, just sort of sensual fabrics. I'm wearing one of the most popular fabrics for this season right now, which is silk satin. Nice. And I have to talk a little bit about that too. And this is how you can adapt something that isn't really your style, that's new in the fashion world. So satin is, and you're seeing it in slip dresses, which we talked about earlier this year. They're still going strong. Why women are wearing them in the winter when it's cold, I don't know, but they're beautiful. And they do look like lingerie. That's why lingerie is in satin, because it is sensual. Now, because it is sensual, it is essentially in terms of style, a romantic textile. It also has a reflective quality to it, especially if it's in a bright, bold, or like gold color. It draws your attention. And anything that draws your attention dramatically has some drama. Now, little old lady me, first of all, I've never had a lot of drama in my style. I have high spirited, but that's not the same as drama. And it's very romantic. And I have like this much romantic, but I have become obsessed with this textile.
Oh, interesting.
And so I found it in one of my dark, understated neutrals in a very classic shirting style. And I love it, and I'm going to wear it, and I get away with it. So if the textile or the style doesn't work for you, be creative, find it in a color that does work for you, in a style that does work for you. Mix it up a little bit, and you can make something work that generally might not. So
Right.
satin is huge. You're seeing it in slip skirts, in the full length slip dresses I talked about, and in blouses. That's the feminine style.
Right. So you
Lots
could
of
maybe you
fashion.
could mix that with maybe a masculine jacket or a masculine shoe and still get, yes. Okay, so let's keep going because I think this is great. We're sort of going to build a puzzle here of putting this together, and I love doing that. That's the thing I love about fashion is you can kind of take and different aspects and put it together that suits you and be creative about it, which I love. So you touched on, in just what you were saying, you touched on the super high mini skirts. So I want to talk about this because I think, most of the women watching this are not going to wear super high mini skirts, but there are ways to wear a shorter skirt for older women, and so I want you to talk about that. Particularly, we're going to have to hit on shoes a little bit with this one.
Right. So what you're seeing is, this combination of feminine and masculine. So you're seeing these shorter skirts with like lug boots,
Okay.
like army boots. It's kind of in your face thing. I can be whoever I want, but I can be tough, but I'm very sexy. That doesn't work for everybody because sometimes it is just too much.
Right.
But you could wear something like that with knee-high boots
Right.
or even the over the knee boots. And they don't have to be I think you probably saw some of the pictures I sent. They don't have to be those pointy toe, real high boots. They can be flat boots with a lower heel, with over the knee or to knee high, with a shorter skirt and a satin blouse. And you could look, or with one of those really comfortable, slightly natural, relaxed, but maybe oversized sweaters.
Right.
And that would be a nice look. And a lot of women could get away with it, could look great in it.
Right. So let's keep going on that idea with the cardigan. You just talked about that, the oversized, because that's the next look. That's look number 3 we're going to talk about. So pulling together the oversized cardigan. Now, I'm a huge fan of oversized cardigans, but I'm not busty, but I have shoulders and I have, I'm tall and it just tends to be like I just look bigger, right? So I look chubbier. So how can we do that with the grandpa cardigan sweater?
Okay, so the kind of sweaters that I was talking about with those mini skirts would be a pullover, or what they call in England a jumper,
Right.
rather than a cardigan. The cardigans will work better with pants outfits.
Okay.
But so then, how do you deal with it? And with jeans, how do you deal with that? Well, the first thing is a lot of the pullovers are cable knit and chunky knit, and those will definitely make, anytime you have a knit that or a textile that has more texture to it, it's going to add pounds. It's going to make you look bigger.
Right.
If you go with a more refined textile, like a fine cashmere or a very fine wool, or one of the combinations they're showing these days that is softer, that would look great. It could be, again, relaxed, but it doesn't have to be bulky. Try to avoid the bulk. And because most cardigans are fairly straight up and down, that will also, just like with the jackets, that creates a more linear line instead of a boxier line. If there is any fullness around your hips, it depends how hippie you are, whether you want to, emphasize that or not. You have to play around with it a little bit, but it's a way to feel soft. It's a way to feel, I think because everybody's under a lot of tension right now, those sweaters make you feel like something is comforting you, like you're being wrapped, and
Mm.
especially if you get it in a really fine quality. So I think that's a better way to do it. Wear it with pants rather than with a super short skirt.
Right. And you brought up like it can make you look more hippie. Do they have ones that are shorter and more cropped for those
They
of us with
do.
hips? So it doesn't,
They
okay.
they do. Yeah, that's the other thing I said to experiment with is the height. We're seeing last year we saw a lot of sweater sets with cropped sweaters that were
Right.
more fitted to the body. And this is the exact opposite.
Right.
So you have to, play with it, what works. They're not showing as many of those shorter cardigans now, but the reality is that a well-fitted, for you, for your body, whatever works for you, cardigan, a well-fitting cardigan for your body is a perennial. It's
Right.
a classic style that'll work year after year. And if you have any classic in your style, in other words, if you have, sort of symmetrical features and you're not nothing, oh, it's too overwhelming, then a classic cardigan that's even slightly below the waist, that'll look beautiful.
Mm.
And the other thing is, I think that when you have anything that's kind of a V neck, that will de-emphasize the size of the bust.
Right.
But it depends. And I didn't mention this before, but I was going to talk about vests a little bit.
Yeah, let's head into vests. That's our next one. So let's just go ahead and head into that. Yeah.
Okay, so there are, the menswear vests, which is suiting material. It looks like a menswear suit, and women are wearing them just sleeveless on their own with loose, sort of wide leg pants. It's a nice look. It's a cold look for winter, for people in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it'll be great. But they're also showing this sort of preppy look, which is the V-neck vests, cable knit with stripes along, this part. One of the women I love, whose blog I love to follow, I'm not going to mention her name. She's usually 100% right on, but she loved this idea. And she's very busty. She talks about it a lot on her blog. So she bought one of these bulkier V-neck, big stripe, because wide, it puts emphasis where the eye goes, vest that she wore over a tailored blouse like yours. I think it put her way off balance. It made her upper body and her bust look enormous. So, if it's chunky or knit, be careful with it. Maybe a fine knit would be beautiful. Right. And maybe without a pattern on it would work fine, because the V-neck does tend to draw attention away from the bust and down.
Right.
And then also up, because that's, you can see it's like it draws a line up and it takes the awareness away. Right. So yeah, a vest, fine knit vest can work. If you're very small busted, then some of those chunky cable, vest would look very nice.
Right. Right. And I was just thinking too, if a woman has very thin arms, like you could put kind of more of a blousey shirt underneath to give you a little bit more weight in your arm area, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And conversely, or relatedly, if like me and my age, you have flabby upper arms, then it's great to wear a beautiful tailored shirt with a vest over it.
Right. Right. So it is wearable. Personally, I'm a huge vest fan. And I've got a thing, if a man walks in with what do they call it in England? It's called a waistcoat. They call them waistcoats. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. I start drooling. I'm like, oh my God. Like there's something.
Well, you're in luck. You're in luck, because waistcoats are the vests that are in this year.
Yes. So if I see someone, I'll start chasing. No, I won't do that. All right. So let's move into leather, because it's leather everything for the fall, which that seems like it's been a while since we've seen this much leather.
They were starting to show it a year ago, but now it's ubiquitous.
Right.
And it's not just what you think of as, I guess the motorcycle jacket thing was very, very popular for several years. It's still popular. It's a perennial. If you have one, wear it forever. But they're showing it now in more, like in blazers that we talked about, lots of skirts, long skirts, full dresses, beautiful trench coats. And the jackets are not just relaxed or slightly oversized, but some of them kind of bubbled. So and not just black or brown. You're seeing them in lavender and in pink and in bright green. It's just amazing. It's everywhere. So yeah, that's a huge, huge one. They are, because again, they're reflective. They're not like suede, which absorbs light. They reflect light. We're not talking about patent leather now. We're talking about regular leather. Um, they have a dramatic feel to them, but they, especially if you're wearing a long midi skirt, they are elongating. So if your legs are shorter, you can wear one of the midi ones that sort of brings your legs looking a little bit longer. You wear those with boots, higher boots, because you don't want to cut your leg, short anymore. So that's leather. It's everywhere now.
So what about if you're vegan and you don't want to wear leather?
Right, exactly. I had a leather jacket that I wore almost every day for 5 years, and I showed it to my mentor. He could not believe it was not leather. It was vegan.
Oh, wow.
It did fall apart eventually because it was vegan.
Yeah.
But yes, you're seeing all of these things in what they call pleather or faux leather or vegan leather. So
Right.
you can keep a clean conscience and still look, wear the look.
That's wonderful. All right, so let's head into shoes. So this for me is like one of the more dramatic, major sort of things happening. So talk about shoes and how that's shifting and how we can apply it.
Sure. So we're having it's sort of a nostalgia, a 70s, 80s, and even 90s nostalgia. You're going to start seeing, I mentioned this earlier, I think in the spring, starting to see platforms, but big platforms and big heels. So, walk cautiously.
Yes.
And we're also seeing stilettos back. We were into the mules. Ladies, keep your mules. They're comfortable. I know you love mules, but we're seeing stilettos, and the stilettos we're seeing for the winter are strappy with ankle straps going up around the leg, not like gladiators, but it's a sexy look. They look beautiful with the silk dresses or skirts, but they're stilettos. You're not seeing them so much in the flatter shoes.
Right.
And then you're seeing again the lug boots, lots and lots of lug boots. You're seeing them worn with the silk and satin skirts. If you just can't do that, you can go with a boot or a Chelsea type boot, which is, the sort of in the English 1960s. Again, retro. Everybody's looking backward for some, maybe they're looking for security or memory of a happier time. I don't know what. But so it's the lug boots. And then for the more feminine style, in addition to stilettos, you have to remember stilettos also are a kind of dramatic look.
Right.
They may seem romantic, but because of the height and the they're dramatic. We're seeing a lot of beautiful ballet flats. You're seeing them with some of them like with Mary Jane straps, a lot of them with bows, pretty unembellished, but in lots of colors and in suedes, nice leathers and pleathers. So ballerina flats are a really big one. And sneakers, like white sneakers or some colored, mostly white sneakers worn with jeans. And some girls are wearing them with those silk skirts, not so much with the leather skirts, but they're, white sneakers are forever. And then the other thing you're seeing everywhere is loafers. You're going to see them classical with a traditional classic heel or lug heels. So those are the 4 or 5 trends that we're seeing in shoes right now. There's really something for everyone, I think. And they're either extremely pointy toe or kind of round and softened. For people like me who have a wide toe box, those pointed toes, forget about it.
I hate them. I hate them. I can't wear them. Yeah.
They're uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about body shape and shoe, like the rounded or the pointed, like how does that influence kind of your whole frame?
Right. So the more roundness you have in your features, the more softness in your text and the texture of your skin, the more romantic that you have, the more you're going to go for a rounder toe. If you have a lot of natural and sort of laid back and you like comfortable relaxed, laid back clothes. A squared off round would work for you. The pointed toe is dramatic, and it works for a woman who has, well, if their feet will fit into that. It's an elongated look. If you're kind of large to where, well, if you're a large size, but you have some drama to your style, you can wear the pointed toes. The lug sew may not work quite as well for you.
Right.
But I think probably the loafers could work well. If you have short legs, then I think the taller boots instead of the Chelsea style boots, as I said earlier, would be nice. You don't want your skirt to end, especially if you have chunky legs. You don't want your skirt length to end where your legs are the widest.
Right.
Take it down to where your legs start to taper in a little bit. If you're super thin, and then again, sneakers. If you're kind of small, you don't want sneakers with a big, heavy sole on them. The larger you are, the more volume you could have in the heel. I think that's, it again, and you have to look at the style, the overall picture. It's not just the shoes. They are part of the whole picture.
Right. And that's often, I think, the challenge with wearing some of these chunkier things. And if you're very petite, you put on big chunky shoes, suddenly the shoe takes over your body, right? So it's being able to put it together in a way that really is very flattering and isn't overtaking. So I love how you explained that. I feel like you gave people a lot of tips there on just how to look at shoes with their body type. And I think that's really, really helpful. So
I will say this one thing. If you are petite and kind of high spirited and have fairly small feet, you can get away with a chunkier style.
Oh, nice.
I'm petite, but I have enormous feet.
Oh, wow.
And if I wear those chunky shoes, people are just
yeah, it takes over. Yeah. I'm really tall. I'm 5'10", and I have size 10 shoe, and I don't like big chunky shoes on me because I feel like I'm a fairly slender person, but it just doesn't work, right? So I think it has to work. Okay, so let's head into our last area, which is accessories and jewelry. So talk for a minute about jewelry. What's going on in jewelry?
Right. So something that will work this is interesting, that will work, and it's indicative of the whole concept of style theory. In handbags, for example, you're seeing simple classic styles, not oversized, not too chunky, not too large, not too tiny, which they showed a few years ago. And in style theory, classic is at the midpoint between most what we call yang or dynamic and most yin, which is soft and accepting. Right. And so the classic is the balance point. You can carry a classic shaped, squared, or slightly rounded handbag with any of those items, even with a slinky dress, and it would work just fine. The color and the textile of the handbag would work. So we're seeing very simple things in handbags. You're not seeing a lot of bright color. You're seeing a lot of neutrals mostly on the handbags. Very traditional. And then in terms of jewelry, it's also real simple. Usually in the wintertime, they start, and maybe they will start to show this, because I think they are showing some more sequins and shiny things and reflective things for the holidays. But in general, you're not seeing a lot of really big chandelier earrings. That's a very dramatic look. And it doesn't really work as well with the oversized menswear type style jackets. It doesn't work quite as well with the slinky dresses. So we're seeing simple gold necklaces, some chunky, things that look very expensive. You can find these things inexpensively in many places.
Right.
So a chunky gold necklace or a thin one, or if you prefer silver, that would work too. Simple hoops, simple diamond or gold studs, and pearls, lots of pearls, but mostly little studs or small dangling things. It's all very simple. They're not even showing a lot of bracelets right now. The whole adornment is going to be very simple. But keep your eyes open for next year, because a lot more of what we call the sort of boho is starting to creep back in. So those of you that have lots of those kind of jewelry pieces and want to wear them, take heart. There's going to be a change.
Yes, I think that was my question with the jewelry is all, I have some beautiful statement pieces that, it's not, that isn't what we're doing this season. We're not doing statement. Statement is coming from the shoes or from the leather or like from other, or the coat, the jackets, right? It's the statements are going to be elsewhere. So it's take your statement jewelry, give it a little kiss and put it away for next season is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right.
There will be a time for it again,
Good.
That's a cycle, comes around again.
Yeah.
And, what was new has to be old, and what was old comes back. So
it's just the way the wheel turns about with fashion, for sure. All right. Well, thank you, Andrea. This has been great. I feel like you've given lots of great tips for the audience, for everybody to try. Even for me, I always learn stuff when we chat. So I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for talking about this.
It's my total pleasure. And thank you. You always ask really good questions that brings the knowledge out.
Yeah, absolutely. And ladies, I hope you've really benefited from this. Please write down below if you have any questions or thoughts or suggestions or anything. Andrea and I always answer all the comments, and we always love hearing from you and interacting with you. So thank you so much for watching The Beauty Shaman.